Okay, let's continue reading the necklace. Don't forget to fill out the questions and answer them correctly, and also to answer the fill-in questions correctly. And don't forget that the grade program, when you first finish it and you check the grade on it, it's not going to be accurate. For whatever reason, in the past, the program has always graded those fill in the blank questions, the writing questions as incorrect until I go in and fix it. So don't panic about that. I'll go in and fix them soon enough. Um, but let's get started. So just as a reminder, the last thing we read was that the main character, the woman, was given this invitation by her husband to go to this really big, affair. It's like a ballroom dance kind of thing, but with like really rich and important people. And she's like, "No, I don't want to go. I don't have anything to wear." And she was quite rude about it. It says, "I don't have an evening dress, and therefore I can't go to that affair. Give the card to some friend at the office whose wife can dress better than I can." Um, it's quite rude, but it also, if you don't have anything to wear, I can understand that, right? Okay, so let's continue. Uh, we already answered that one. All right. He was stunned. He resumed, "Let's see, Matilda." So now we finally have her name. It's not Mathilde, although it looks like it. It's Matilda. How much would a suitable outfit cost? One that you could wear for other affairs too, something very simple. She thought it over for several seconds, going over her allowance and thinking also of the amount she could ask for without bringing an immediate refusal and an exclamation of dismay from the thrifty clerk. Uh, this is something that I'm sure a lot of us, including myself, is very good at doing when you ask for money from your parents, right? Uh, so yeah, smart. Maybe a little tricky, she's trying to get the most out of him, but I don't know. We all do that. Uh, Finally, she answered hesitatingly. "I'm not sure exactly, but I think with 400 francs, I can manage it." Now, I don't know the conversion rates, right? But I do know that this is the 1880s. And if you're talking 400 francs in the 1880s, you're talking like, I don't know, $1,000 dress or more. Like, this is a really nice outfit. Okay. Um, he turned a bit pale, for he had set aside just that amount to buy a rifle so that the following summer he could join some friends who were getting up a group to shoot larks, those are birds, on the plain near Nanterre. However, he said, "All right, I'll give you 400 francs, but try to get a nice dress." What indirect characterization does the husband just said? We'll call him Loisel. He doesn't really have a first name in this story, but we know his last name is Loisel, and a lot of times people back then were just called by their last name. So, what does what Loisel just said and did for his wife say about him indirectly? Okay. All right, let's continue. As the day of the party approached, Mademoiselle Loisel seemed sad, moody, ill at ease. Her outfit was ready, however. Her husband said to her one evening, "What's the matter? You've been all out of sorts for 3 days." And she answered, "It's embarrassing not to have a jewel or a gem. Nothing to wear with on my dress. I'll look like a pauper. I'd almost rather not go to the party." Um, so is that the fact that she's feeling like she doesn't want to go, the fact that she's upset about it, and is trying to figure out something to do? What type of conflict is that? Is that an internal conflict or an external conflict? Okay, let's continue. All right. He answered, "Why not wear some flowers?" They're fashionable this season. For 10 francs, you can get 2 or 3 gorgeous roses. She was not convinced. No, there's nothing more humiliating than to look poor among a lot of rich women. Again, it sounds like she's being petty. On the other hand, I don't know that she's wrong. If people can tell that you're the poorest person there, and I'm sure people can tell if you're around that group, hey, maybe you don't care, maybe it doesn't bother you, but I could see the point. All right. But her husband exclaimed, "Oh, my, but you're silly. Go see your friend, Madame Forestier." That was the friend who she was embarrassed to be around. Remember, she'd come home and cry for days after visiting her because, she's so upset that that woman's richer than her. Ask her to lend you some jewelry. You and she know each other well enough for you to do that. Hmm, jewelry. I wonder what type of jewelry Matilda's going to borrow from her friend. What was the name of this story again? Oh, yeah. Okay. Um, well, I've kind of been answering this as we've gone. The second question is supposed to be one that connects to you. You could just think about it instead of having to write something down. But I think a lot of people have felt like, oh, I don't know if I want to go hang out with this group or whatever because I don't have the proper whatever fill in the blank. But okay, let's move on. All right. She gave a cry of joy. Oh, that's so. I hadn't thought of it. The next day, she paid her friend a visit and told her of her predicament. Mademoiselle Forestier, sorry, this is French, went towards a large closet with mirrored doors. She took out a large jewel box, brought it over, opened it, and said to Mademoiselle Loisel, pick something out, my dear. At first, her eyes noted some bracelets, then a pearl necklace, then a Venetian cross, gold and gems, marvelous workmanship. She tried on these adornments in front of the mirror, but hesitated, unable to decide which to part with and put back. She kept on asking, haven't you something else? Oh, yes, keep on looking. I don't know just what you'd like. All at once, she found in a black satin box a superb diamond necklace. Now we're talking, I don't know if you're familiar with how expensive diamonds are. There's little rocks that are like that big or like $5,000, $10,000. And a diamond necklace, it's like studded with, like it's got diamonds all up and down it. If it's real, these can be, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, if not more. um, but hey, she found something she likes. Uh, Her pulse beat faster with longing. Her hands trembled as she took it up, clasping it around her throat. Outside her high neck dress, she stood in ecstasy, looking at her reflection. I mean, they do look good. Yeah, if you got the right outfit to go with it. Then she asked hesitatingly, pleading, can I borrow that? Just that and nothing else? Why, of course. She threw her arms around her friend uh, and hugged her warmly and fled with her treasure. I'm assuming that's what it says. Oh, kissed her warmly. It's French, right? A little different. uh, the day of the party arrived. Madame Loisel was a, sorry, Mademoiselle Loisel, she's married, was a sensation. She was the prettiest one there, fashionable, gracious, smiling, and wild with joy. All the men turned to look at her, asked who she was, begged to be introduced. All the cabinet officials wanted to waltz with her. The minister took notice of her. Um, there's a bit of irony here, and irony is not one of the terms that we've talked about. I probably should have introduced it. Uh, but the fact that she's the poorest one there, and yet she's getting the most attention for looking the wealthiest is ironic. We'll talk about what that means and why on another day. But for now, Uh, just want to mention that. Uh, she danced madly, wildly, drunk with pleasure, giving no thought to anything in the triumph of her beauty, the pride of her success, in a kind of happy cloud composed of all the adulation, of all the admiring glances, of all the awakened longings, a sense of complete victory that is so sweet to a woman's heart. Like all of these emotions that she's experiencing, this is exactly what she has wanted since like the day she was born. Like this is what she has always dreamt that she has been born for. Like this is her scene. And now everything has absolutely come true. It's like perfect, right? She left around 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, so before we get to the part where she leaves, uh, what is the mood right now in the story? Um, so, uh, so she left at around 4 o'clock in the morning. Her husband, since midnight, had been dozing in his small, empty sitting room, where three other gentlemen, only three, whose wives were having too good a time with three other gentlemen. He threw over her shoulders the wraps he had brought for going home, modest garments of everyday life whose shabbiness clashed with the stylishness of her evening clothes. She felt this and longed to escape unseen by other women who were draped in expensive furs. Loisel held her back. Hold on, you'll catch a cold outside. I'll call a cab. But she wouldn't listen to him. And by the way, when he says call a cab, he's not talking about like a taxi that didn't exist. Is horse-drawn carriage. She wouldn't listen to him and went rapidly down the stairs. When they were on the street, and no, she didn't drop her glass slipper, just in case you're wondering. Uh, they didn't find a carriage, and they set out to hunt for one, hailing drivers whom they saw going by at a distance. They walked toward the Seine. This is a river that runs through Paris. Disconsolate and shivering. Finally, in the docks, they found one of those carriages one sees in Paris only after nightfall, as if they were ashamed to show their drabness during the daylight hours. It dropped them at their door in the Rue des Martyrs, which is interesting. A martyr is people who, in definition, people who suffer for their beliefs or suffer for a long time. These are people who oftentimes are associated with like dying for their beliefs, and they're okay to die for it, but they suffer. Um, if you don't think that the name of the street is, you know, significant, just wait a second. But I do want to point out the mood, how much the mood has changed, right? Uh, think about what the mood was just like a page ago. She's at the party, like it's just perfect. It's like Cinderella almost. And all of a sudden they're alone, they're cold, it's miserable. They're in these one of these carriages that just is awful and drab, and like how quickly the mood has changed. So, what is based on what you're reading, the description and the setting? What is the mood right now? Okay. So then uh, the carriage dropped them at their door, the Rue de Martyrs, and they climbed warily up to their apartment. For her, it was all over. Any, I mean, this sounds like the story's over, right? Like, hey, things worked out pretty well for her. We have the plot moved along, it reached a certain point, things worked out, end of story, right? Or do you have some predictions about what's about to happen? Anyone? Okay, well, let's see. Also, I should point out that at this point, it appears as if Matilda's evening was a complete success, right? Like, and it was only a success because she was absolutely insistent upon getting that dress and that necklace. If she did not wear those things, let's make no mistake, she would not have had a good time. No one would have cared about her. No one would have wanted to dance with her. It was only because of those material possessions that she was able to have such a great time. So if that's the case, does that mean that all of her whining and complaining and wanting, desperately to live this other life, was that all worth it? Did it all pay off? Does that mean that all of that stuff is okay? Like, is the moral of the story up to this point that you should go after your dreams and not be satisfied with anything that you have that you don't want? What do you think? Okay, well, here we go. For him, there was the thought that he would have to be at the ministry at 10 o'clock. Before the mirror, she let the wraps fall from her shoulders to see herself once again in all her glory. Suddenly, she gave a cry. The necklace was gone. Dun dun dun. I mean, did anybody see that coming? Her husband, already half undressed, said, "What's the trouble?" She turned towards him despairingly. I don't have Mademoiselle Forrester's necklace. What? What? You can't mean it. It's impossible. They hunted everywhere, through the folds of the dress, through the folds of the coat, in the pockets. They found nothing. He asked, "Are you sure you had it when leaving the dance?" "Yes, I felt it in the hall of the ministry." "But if you had lost it on the street, we would have heard it drop. It must be in the cab." I'm sure if the cab driver finds something like that, he's not about to give it back. "Yes, quite likely. Did you get its number?" "No. Didn't you notice either?" "No." They looked at each other aghast. Finally, Loisel got dressed again. I'll retrace our steps on foot," he said, "to see if I can find it." And he went out. She remained in her evening clothes, without the strength to go to bed, slumped in a chair in the unheated room, her mind a blank. Her husband came in around 7 o'clock. He had had no luck. He went to the police station, to the newspaper, to post a reward to cab companies. Everywhere the slightest hope drove him. That evening, Loisel returned pale, his face lined. Still, he had learned nothing. "We'll have to write to your friend," he said, "to tell her you have broken the catch and are having it repaired. That will give us a little time to turn around." So, they're going to lie about it to buy some extra time and then try to figure something out in the meantime. She wrote to his dictation, meaning he said it out loud, and she wrote down what he said. At the end of the week, they had given up all hope. I should pause here. So this is the main conflict, right? I should be clear at this point that this is going to be the main problem that these two have to solve. Are real, well, yeah, I guess both of them in the story. Would you call this main conflict an internal or external conflict? All right. So let's find out how they deal with this. Loisel, looking 5 years older, declared, "We must take steps to replace that piece of jewelry. And remember how much it cost." So, well, that's what they're going to find out first. The next day, they took the case to the jeweler whose name they found inside. He consulted his records. "I didn't sell that necklace, madame. I only supplied the case." Then they went from one jeweler to another, hunting for a similar necklace, going over the recollections, both sick with despair and anxiety. They found in a shop in the Palais Royal, very expensive part of town, a string of diamonds which seemed exactly like the one they were seeking. It was priced at 40,000 francs. Francs. Uh, Again, I don't, you know the exact exchange rate and all this. That's got to be hundreds of thousands at this point, in this day and age, if not more. And remember, this guy's not rich. Like, that is a shame. Like, that's just, can you imagine? But okay. Uh, they could get it for 36. That's something. They asked the jeweler to hold it for them for 3 days, and they reached an agreement that he would take it back for 34,000 if the lost one was found before February. Loisel had 18,000 francs that he had inherited from his father. He would borrow the rest. It's a ton of money to borrow. Again, for back in the day, right? He went around raising the money, asking 1,000 francs from one, 400 from another, 100 here, 60 there. He signed notes, made ruinous deals, did business with loan sharks, ran the whole gamut of money lenders. This is bad. Like, you do not. So when you borrow money from like loan sharks, they gouge you. Like, their interest rates are enormous. If you don't pay them back, they will break your knees. Like, they are, you know, they don't do things legally. You could get into real trouble, but they also allow you to buy money or to borrow money when you don't have credit. That's why you go to loan sharks. Like, why would anyone do that? Well, because the bank won't loan you anything because they can't guarantee that you're going to pay them back. But a loan shark kind of sort of doesn't want you to, because then they could charge you more interest and get tons more money, kind of thing. Um, he compromised the rest of his life, risked his signature without knowing if he'd be able to honor it, and then, terrified by the outlook of the future, by the blackness of despair about to close around him, by the prospect of all the privations of the body and tortures of the spirit, he went to claim the new necklace with the 36,000 francs, which he placed on the counter of the shopkeeper. There's a lot of indirect characterization right here. This tells us a lot about Loisel. So write down what does all of this, what kind of indirect characterization, how does all of this indirectly characterize him? Okay. I also want to pause here for a second and talk about round and flat characters. For a character to be considered round, there has to be some amount of depth, meaning you have to uh, understand something about them that is not just very surface level. It's not something that most people would probably, most of his friends would probably know about him, or at least know that a person is complex. Like, they have mixed feelings on things. They're not all perfectly virtuous or just horribly evil. They're really good in some areas and really bad in others. Something like that. So, based on that information, would you call Loisel um, a flat or round character? Okay, so let's move on. And I'm going to go over all these things once you get back to class. So, uh, yeah. All right. Let's uh, let's move on. Main conflict, indirect characterization, round character. Oh, I just gave it away. There you go. But I'll explain why later. Okay. Uh, where am I? Oh yeah, there you go. When Mademoiselle Loisel took the necklace back, Mademoiselle Forestier said to her frostily, "You should have brought it back sooner. I might have needed it." She didn't open the case, an action her friend was afraid of. If she had noticed the substitution, what would she have thought? What would she have said? Would she have thought her a thief? Mademoiselle Loisel experienced the horrible life the needy live. She played her part, however, with sudden heroism. That frightful debt had to be paid. She would pay it. She dismissed her maid. They rented a garret under the eaves. So they're living in like an attic now. Uh, if she was living a not rich life before, this is way worse, right? Uh, she dismissed her maid. She learned to do the heavy housework. She never had to do this before, right? To perform the hateful duties of cooking. She washed dishes, wearing down her pink, shell pink nails, scouring the grease from pots and pans. She scrubbed dirty linen, shirts, cleaning rags, uh, which she hung in the line to dry. She took the garbage down to the street, and that may seem like, like, oh wow, she's taking out the garbage, big deal. If you never had to do any of these things ever, yeah, that would be a shock, I would think. Um, to the street each morning and brought up the water, stopping on each landing to get her breath, and clad like a peasant woman, basket on arm, guarding sow, which is old French coin of little value. But she's like protecting it, like she, uh, like every penny counts. Uh, sow by sow, her scanty allowance, she bargained with the fruit dealers, the grocer, the butcher, and was insulted by them. You know, she has to take it now. Like, uh, it's embarrassing to have to deal, and say, "Oh, come on, give me this, give me that." Before she was just like, "Here, take the money." But she's dealing with it. So, uh, one, at this point, would you call her a flat around character? And two, is she static or dynamic? But let's not answer that question yet. Let's come back to that. Each month, notes had to be paid. These are like promissory notes or like loans, and others renewed to give more time. Her husband labored evenings to balance a tradesman's accounts, and at night, often he copied documents at 5 sal a page. So he's like double working, double jobs, double shifts, that kind of thing, um, just to pay this off, this mistake that they made. And this went on for 10 years. I mean, think about 10 years ago. It's a long time. Can you think back 10 years? um, Finally, all was paid back. Everything, including the exorbitant rates of the loan sharks and accumulated compound interest. Like, think about how important, um, you know, Loisel's family name is to him to have to go through all this. Like, he could have found a shady way to deal with this, but then, his reputation might be not that it's worth that much at this point because he's, relatively poor. But like, this is an honorable person who's like taking care of things the right way, right? And Matilda is going along with him. Like, she doesn't, not that she could leave him. There wouldn't be much of a place to go. But, she does her part. She doesn't sit around complaining about it. Like, she takes care of it. So, Mademoiselle Loisel appeared an old woman now. Is that direct or indirect characterization? That sentence. Mademoiselle Loisel appeared an old woman. That's a good sentence to ask. Okay. She became heavy, rough, harsh, like one of the poor. Her hair untended, her skirts askew, her hands red, her voice shrill. She even slopped water on her floors and scrubbed them herself. But sometimes, while her husband was at work, she would sit near the window and think of that long ago evening when at the dance she had been so beautiful and admired. Okay, this is where I want to stop and ask you if you think she's a uh, static or dynamic character. And this might be a little hard to answer because, on the one hand, she seems to have changed. The question is, was it by force? And the bigger question is, if she's still dreaming of, daydreaming of that one night that she had where everything was perfect and she was rich and wealthy, has her mindset changed? Is she really a different person now? Um, what do you think? And justify your answer. All right, we're almost done here. Uh, yeah. Okay, here we go. A couple questions left. Uh, what would have happened if she had not lost the necklace? Who knows? Who can say? How strange and unpredictable life is, how little there is between happiness and misery. Then one Sunday, when she had gone for a walk on the Champs Elysees That's a famous avenue in Paris, as the note says. To relax a bit from the week's labors, she suddenly noticed a woman strolling with her child. It was Mademoiselle Forestier, still young looking, still beautiful, still charming, unlike Matilda. Uh, Mademoiselle Loisel felt a rush of emotion. Should she speak to her? Of course. Now that everything was paid off, she would tell her the whole story. Why not? Well, that's a good question. Like, why would you tell someone that other than to make them feel guilty or responsible for it? This is all your fault. Because of your necklace. Ah, mm. She went towards her. Hello, Janine, or Jeannie. The other, not recognizing her, showed astonishment at being spoken so familiarly by this common person. She stammered, but madame, I don't reckon you must be mistaken. No, I am Matilda Loisel. Her friend gave a cry. Oh, my poor Matilda, how you've changed. Wow, that's not very nice. Wow, you look terrible. That's basically what she's saying. Yes, I've had a hard time since last seeing you, and plenty of misfortunes, and all on account of you. So here she is kind of being mean and pointing fingers again. Has she really changed? Is she really dynamic at this point? Uh, nah. On account of me? How do you mean? Do you remember that diamond necklace you loaned me to wear to the dance at the ministry? Yes, but what about that? Well, I lost it. You lost it, but you returned it. I brought you another just like it. And we've been paying it. Oh, sorry. But you returned it. I bought you another just like it. And we've been paying it off for 10 years now. You can imagine that wasn't easy for us who had nothing. Well, it's over now, and I'm glad of it. Madame Forestier stopped short. You mean to say that you bought a diamond necklace to replace mine? Yes. You never noticed it then? They were quite alike, and she smiled with proud and simple joy. Yeah. She, she's like, you didn't notice I got away with it. Oh, yeah. And then Madame Forestier says she was quite overcome, clasped her by the hands. Oh, my poor Matilda. But mine was a fake. Why, at most, it was only worth 500 francs. That's the end of the story. When you see the big square, that's it. Okay, so for one, uh, what's the mood right now? And also, um, what's the climax of the story and what's the resolution of the story? All right, so I hope that you understand the story, you understand the plot, and you at least had practice answering the questions. If any of the questions were difficult and you're not sure how to answer them, um, or you answer them incorrectly, this is not a problem. You'll get credit for just completing the PlayPosit, and don't worry about the scores right now. Remember that this is all practice, right? We want to get you good at answering these kind of things for the test, but also for the essay are both going to be about this. That's kind of what the whole unit's about, is really getting you familiar with terms. And we want you to be able to, uh, read a short story on your own and be able to apply terms to it without us having telling you, right? Okay. Thanks for watching, and I will see you back in class.